Hi there once again. Welcome into Leading Edge. I'm your host, Jeff Smith. Dr. James Holloway became the University of Toledo's 19th president just weeks ago, stepping in as the university confronts a dramatic enrollment slide. In fact, 13,513 students this past spring was down over 35% from 2010, even as new efforts aim to boost retention and revitalize academic programming. The university faces tough decisions, including the suspension of multiple undergraduate and graduate degrees to comply with Ohio's controversial Senate Bill 1, a move that has sparked intense debate over academic freedom and diversity initiatives. Meanwhile, Dr. Holloway is charged with leading UT through federal policy shifts, state mandates, and local pressures, all the while promising a new and bold vision to anchor the university as both a research powerhouse, which it already is, and a regional engine for opportunity. Great to have Dr. Holloway with us here on set. I know we had an interview with you a couple of weeks ago, but I wanted to have you into Leading Edge. Give us a little more time to chat and get to know each other. Great to have you here. Thank you so much.
And Jeff, thanks so much for having me on. Really appreciate it.
I want to touch on the very end thing, and you and I talked about it in the green room before we came out here today, is being an engine for a community, for a region. That's something that really drew you to this gig, isn't it?
Yeah, you know, I really appreciate the fact that from its founding, University of Toledo has been the university for Toledo. It's about Toledo, it's about Lucas County, it's about the region. I think that's really important for universities. We need to be about a place. We need to recognize our responsibility to support the people who support us. We don't exist for ourselves, we exist for this community. And you know, universities can support a region in so many ways. I mean, the most obvious one for University of Toledo, provision of health care, right? Essential service to this community.
Right.
This community won't thrive without great health care. The creation, the attraction of talent, the development of talent, bringing in students, developing their capacity so that when they graduate they can be successful and contribute to the region. Developing new ideas, the research mission that you just talked about.
Right.
That's about creating new ideas that many of which will directly contribute to the growth of the region. We're a powerhouse in material science research. Some of that's because of the glass industry that's been here in Toledo for really decades and decades. And so all of those pieces that are core to a university are also supportive of the community.
Your background in nuclear engineering, and I asked you, did this job find you, did you find it, because of the engineering fold that exists over there on Bancroft. Talk a little bit about that as far as your experience, your background, and how you move that ball down the field.
Sure, and you know, I'll say that it's not that the job found me or that I found the job. We found each other, and you know, it's a process of coming together, seeing the opportunities, seeing, you know, when I looked at this position at University of Toledo, one of the things that attracted it to me is that there's really good, important work to do, right? You mentioned some of the challenges. Dealing with those challenges makes the role of president attractive.
But did you see it as a campus in crisis?
I don't see it as a campus in crisis. We're not in crisis. We have things to do. We have things we can do better. We can recruit students in a different way that will lead to more success. We can develop our healthcare platform in new ways to support the community. But I don't approach it as crisis. I approach it as we have some challenges, we have some opportunities, there are things we can do better, and we should find those ways to do things better.
Companies look, when they are making a change, when they are making a transition, they look for a CEO who can turn things around, right? And I wonder if you were that change agent for the board when they looked at you, because you have a story to tell as far as what happened at New Mexico, do you not?
Sure, and you know, when I came to New Mexico, it was a university that had some challenges. We had challenges in enrollment, we had challenges in knitting the university together. We had multiple parts of the university that in many ways were operating separately. The main campus, the health campus, our branch campus.
Any similarities between the two schools?
The main campus, the health campus, we're not working well together.
Okay.
I mean, so that's and I think things are actually working pretty well here at the University of Toledo, but all those same pieces where we needed to knit the campus together. And what we did at New Mexico is we were able to turn enrollment around. We were able to create research activities that connected faculty across all of those different disciplines, from health sciences to engineering to the social sciences. Those same opportunities exist here. And so certainly, I think that you'd have to ask the trustees what their thinking was, but certainly my interpretation is that they saw some parallels between the challenges we had at New Mexico 6 years ago and the challenges we have here.
I kind of said, with tongue planted firmly in cheek, I wonder if there was an AI search that was done, find the possible candidate who has turned this around. And I just want to throw some numbers out there. You were able, during your time at the University of New Mexico, you reversed a long decline in enrollment with a 40% increase in new first-year students, grew research expenditures by 46%, and doubled philanthropic giving as well. Those are three major plays as far as the health of a university is concerned. Talk specifically, because I look at that, and as a journalist, I want to answer how. How did you do that 40% turnaround in new first year?
Sure. So for new first year students, we changed everything about the way we recruited students. We changed the way we communicated with students. We changed when we communicated with students. What does that mean?
Because it's all, everybody's looking to go to school, and in New Mexico, you want them to go there.
Yeah. So to give an example, at the University of New Mexico, when I started there, we did not send any message to any prospective student in September. We were just silent in September. That's a bad idea, right? That's a prime time when seniors are really finalizing their decision-making about where to go to college. Equally, and this is a same opportunity here, it's not just about talking to prospective seniors in high school. You got to talk to juniors, you got to talk to sophomores, because you're really developing a relationship.
The seed, right?
Exactly. You're developing a relationship for the long term. You want, when that student becomes a senior, you want them to be saying, yeah, I want University of Toledo. That's my number one choice. You don't want to be, oh yeah, if I don't get into my top two choices, I'll go University of Toledo. That means they have to know about you early. You have to make sure that when they're sophomores, when they're juniors, they know about you.
And I feel like you're defining recruitment.
It is, but I think the word recruitment it's the right technical word, but it can mislead people, because it's about educating prospective students about what the opportunities for them are at the University of Toledo, right? It's not about just going in and, we just want to get anybody who'll come. We want to make sure that young students are picking the right college for them, and that means we need to make sure that they are learning what we offer and seeing how they fit in that. And part of that is the mailings that we send out to them. It's the social media outreach we do. But it's also, when you bring them to campus and you do that campus tour, or like the campus crawl that we did a couple of weeks ago, you make sure that those events are great events, that they're exciting, they're full of energy, that they're also full of information. So that, the campus crawl is a great example. We have all of these academic departments out there showing what they do, getting students to think about, maybe I'll go into anthropology or philosophy or engineering or math or whatever it is. The quality of those events really matters. I think what's really important at the University of Toledo right now is, we've created, we've provided more support for our enrollment team. We've got a great new leader there.
You're leading into something, and before we go to our first break, I want to ask one final question. And there have been 10 presidents at the University of Toledo over the last 30 years. You're talking about a buy-in for the campus. You're talking about a buy-in from faculty. You're talking about a buy-in from every single employee on those grounds. Is that what you fight to try to get?
Well, one thing you're describing is a certain amount of instability. And we've had that instability in multiple leadership levels. That's one of the things we need to do, is create stability. You can't create buy-in if the leadership is changing all the time, right? You need consistency of the leadership to develop trust. Trust takes time. You need consistency of leadership, not just to develop a vision for where you want the university to go, but to execute on it. That also takes time. And 10 leaders in 30 years, okay, that's 3 years per. That's not a very long tenure on average.
Right.
Now, some, of course, were presidents for much longer.
Right.
But on average,
and there were
it's
some
kinda
interims
short.
in there as well. I do have to be fair. Can you stick around?
Of course.
We want to spend the entire show with you. I guess I should have asked that right out of the get-go, right? Stay with us. When we come back here on Leading Edge, up next, we dive into one of the biggest challenges facing the University of Toledo. Once again, reversing that steep enrollment decline. Leading Edge right after this. Welcome back here on Leading Edge. Once again, Dr. James Holloway, the brand new president of the University of Toledo, coming from the University of New Mexico. Great to have you with us again. I wanted to ask you, fair or not fair, because over the last couple of months, over the last year or so, we've seen so much talk about the Department of Education. I had the president of Adrian College sitting exactly where you are a few months ago. And we talked specifically about the Department of Education, its importance in what you guys do, how you do it. But I also want to ask you if it's fair to say that maybe college campuses have become too liberal over the last few decades.
So, I think you're putting together a lot of things there because, the Department of Education, most of what they do is provide funding for education. Most of it for K-12 education, a big chunk for college education. Critically important piece of that is Pell. And so the Pell grants that support low-income students, we have a big population of those students at the University of Toledo. Those programs in the Department of Education, those enable untold numbers of students to go through the University of Toledo, succeed, graduate, go out and become productive members of the Lucas County and Toledo community. Right. So I have to start with that. The main work of the Department of Education is really those funding programs that have been so critically important for education in the country. I think that there's a
but I think what I asked him, does it need a reset?
So, and I think when we come to the question of sort of the political climate on campuses, I personally think that there's an over-analysis or an overemphasis on a belief that students on campuses can't speak their minds. One of the fundamental tenets of colleges is in fact freedom of speech. It is fundamental to what we do. And I think in many cases, folks have found examples where a student feels like they couldn't speak their mind. And that one example becomes the sort of the poster child for the whole sector. When you think about, there's some 5,000 universities in this country. And you find those cases where students have that feeling. Yes, there are those cases, but when you look across all of higher ed, that's not what you see. You see students expressing their minds, you see students protesting, you see students disagreeing with professors. I've certainly had students in my classrooms who disagreed with me, and that's actually, the point is that's part of the process.
Right.
Right? I do think that it's really important for university professors and for the rest of us, frankly, to remember that part of our responsibility is to learn to work through differences, learn to express our views, learn to support those views with evidence, and learn to align those views with our values, and then recognize it's okay for us to disagree. Yeah. That, I think, is something that the university should help happen for young learners, is help them learn how to disagree with each other.
But when you come in as president, is there any moment where Dr. James Holloway says, can we please do more of this? Is that your role? Are you a micromanager as far as the campus and the culture is concerned?
Oh, I'm definitely not a micromanager. I'm a team builder, and so I think it's really important to build a team and empower that team. I'm not always the smartest person in the room. I'm usually not. And I like to bring in people who are really good at the things they do and set them loose.
Let's talk about Team Toledo specifically, and you and I talked about that before we came out here today. There is this effort, and I told you in all of my conversations with athletic director Brian Blair, there have been those moments after he finished a sentence, I thought, I need to run through a wall for this guy. He is not only leading sports on campus, he is leading a mission as far as the community is concerned. Can you talk a little bit about how you learned of his Team Toledo efforts and your thoughts, what you can add to what he's trying to get accomplished?
So I first met Brian during the interview process and immediately thought, this guy's amazing. And what I love about Brian as an athletic director is he thinks about the whole university. Not every athletic director does. Many think about athletics and their domain, and that's their focus. Of course, Brian thinks about athletics, but he thinks about the whole institution, how athletics contributes to the whole institution, how the institution can support athletics. And remember, we have over 400 student athletes. They're an important part of our student body. And so I love that he takes a holistic view. He and I are very aligned in that. I think that college athletics is an important piece of what we do. You know, what we do in universities is we help develop human beings. A piece of that, an important piece, is we develop minds. But we're physical beings. We have bodies, right? And what folks do in athletics is help those folks whose identity is connected to their athleticism develop that athleticism. That's really important. And at the same time, and what you're alluding to, you know, it makes this great connector to the community. You want to see a football game in Toledo, you're coming to the Glass Bowl, right? That to me is a really important, one of the important ways that we connect with community. And that's, you know, I mentioned to you earlier, that's what university is all about. We are about the community that supports us. And athletics is one of the ways that we both support the community, but also connect to it. Because people like to get together and root for a team and you know, experience the joy of competition.
And the alumni are important to bring them back to campus as well.
Brings them in too.
We've got another segment coming up. Stay with us here on Leading Edge. With sweeping federal education policy shifts underway, including potential budget cuts, the threat of ending the Department of Education, we talked about that, and major changes to student aid programs, which the doctor talked about. We'll ask how UT plans to adapt to protect its students and programming. Welcome back with Dr. James Holloway, new president of the University of Toledo, joining us on Leading Edge. In our remaining minutes, there was an editorial in the Toledo Blade recently, and it kind of touched on existing strengths and where you feel change is needed the most, or where the editorial board thought change is needed the most. Where do you kind of put your cards as far as strengths and change?
There's too many strengths to simply list them, but I will say one of the important things about the University of Toledo as an asset is that it's a research university. So it's not just a university, but it is a research powerhouse. It's also a research university with an academic health system. That's a huge strength. Most universities don't have that. That's a very special feature. And because we have those two things, we can deliver educational programs that others simply can't, or deliver educational programs in ways others can't. So you mentioned engineering earlier. To learn engineering from an engineering professor who does engineering research, it's very different from learning engineering from a professor who simply learned engineering themselves. And so those are strengths. Part of what I think the Blade mentioned is there are three areas that I'm really focused on. So one is enrollment. That's kind of job one. So that's a really important area. We need to stabilize our enrollment, and my goal is growth.
When will you know you're making a dent?
So we'll really, we'll have early indicators this year, but we won't see enrollment growth this year. What we can start to see are some of the ways that we're trying to reach students having an impact. And then over the next year or two, what we'll see is initially more indicators that the ways we're reaching students are having an impact, and then that we're actually seeing larger first-year classes. And again, part of the why does it take so long? Well, we're recruiting sophomores in high school. It takes a while for them to come, and so we really have to fill that pipeline. And the University of Toledo hasn't been filling the pipeline for a long time. We keep going after seniors, which is important, and we haven't been filling that pipeline.
You said there were two other
Yeah,
pillars?
so enrollment, number one. Number two is research. So we really need to double down and grow our research impact, and do that not exclusively, but with an eye towards research that impacts our region, the folks who support us, the industries here, the companies here, nonprofits, governments, but all these organizations that could benefit from the expertise the university can provide. And then the third really is to live into our promise as a university that is connected to its community. So when I meet various folks in government or just people out there in the city, one of the first things I ask them is, what can the university do for you? What are the challenges you see in our community, or the opportunities you see in our community that the university could contribute to? So that third piece really is leaning into our role as a university that is part of this community. Because we're an anchor.
You coined a phrase for me. You said nobody's off the hook.
Yes.
You said that earlier, right?
Yeah, so we were talking about who's responsible. Who's responsible for helping Toledo grow and develop? And my answer is everybody is. Nobody's off the hook.
Yeah.
The University of Toledo is on the hook for that, but so are the companies that are here, the governments, the nonprofits. We're all in it together.
This has been a great conversation. I really appreciate you taking the time and sharing it with our audience here on Leading Edge.
Thanks, Jeff.
Absolutely. It's good to meet you. Good luck at the University of Toledo this year. We'll be back right after this. Fascinating conversation there with Dr. James Holloway. We hope you enjoyed our in-depth conversation looking into not only what the future of University of Toledo holds, but what he sees the strengths being. If you want to reach the show with comments, ideas, or suggestions, it's easy. Just send us an email. It's leadingedge, all one word, @WTOL.com. As always, we appreciate your time each and every weekend. Thank you so much for joining us. Until next time, listen, learn, and lead.